Believe it or not, I stopped letting AI write for me and my work got better. Am I crazy? Shouldn't I be like maximizing AI? Am I worried about getting behind? Not really. In fact, I've used AI tools quite a bit in the past few years and I will continue to do so, but a few things that I learned recently opened my eyes to some hidden dangers of using these tools. Let me explain. First, what do I mean by writing with AI? Well, I started dabbling with ChatGPT about 2 years ago, and I've gone pretty deep on what it can do. In my experience with that, basically these chatbots, Claude, Grok, ChatGPT, they're all really good at generating text. It's literally what they were designed to do. So it's kind of an obvious use case to have them write stuff for you. And so I've used AI to do that. I've written emails and documents and even scripts for videos with AI pretty often, actually. That is what I'm talking about by writing with AI. It's like generating the bulk of, or even all of the text of your content using a chatbot. And then even if you're heavily editing and proofreading it afterwards, that generation of the text initially is really what I'm talking about, what I stopped doing. And honestly, it was actually the experience I had using AI to write like that started me down this road in the first place. So let me tell you why. When I first started using ChatGPT to write emails, it kind of blew me away, right? I'm saving all this time. I'm popping out emails and it made hard things easy, tricky paragraphs, just rephrasing them to make more sense or condensing language, softening my language so it was a little more corporate PC, right? That was great. And so I felt like I was winning. It's here we go. It's going to do all this stuff for me. But the more I used it, the more I saw patterns that I just didn't like. First off, I started using it kind of like a crutch. Any time that writing got difficult, I would reach for the AI and start using that. So now I'm instead of using my own linguistic skills to communicate, I'm just leaning on a machine and substituting that for my own communication skills. Second, I just didn't like the patterns in AI writing. So the more complex stuff I would try to do with it, or the more involved the email conversations would get, I would notice frequently that the writing would get circular and it would just circle around the same idea 20 different ways instead of really expanding on it or adding anything valuable. It would overuse buzzwords, and then there'd be these random non sequiturs or very strange analogies that normal humans wouldn't use. And I ended up spending more time proofreading and editing than writing. And so that felt like a trade versus a win, right? Now I'm not writing the email, but I'm spending just as much time editing it. And I don't even like editing. So it turns out that was kind of a loss for me. So I also felt like the words and the sentence structure that AI uses is just it's hard to put a finger on it, but it's just off, not quite human, especially when it comes to communication and emails. The phrasing tends to be kind of impersonal, pretty generic, and kind of comes across hollow, And believe me, I know about this is after tuning it and providing instructions and getting really, really, detailed into it. I understand how this stuff works, but I never could get something that sounded, consistently human. And the amount of work you got to put in to get that is still I don't think it's actually a net win. I feel like everybody's using AI to write emails now, and it's everybody sounds the same. We're robots just talking past each other now, as if email and digital communication wasn't already dysfunctional to begin with. So all that really got me wondering if using AI so much for writing was a good idea. But then I learned about some emerging evidence that really shifted my perspective even further. So over the summer, back in 2025, there was a small study out of MIT that was distributed preprint, and it has some pretty serious implications for people who use AI in writing. The basic gist of the findings were that basically people who used AI to assist with their writing, the subjects in that study, they experienced a loss of vocabulary and decreased brain activity related to writing compared to the subjects that didn't use AI. So literally, they became worse writers. But so what? It's a small study, hasn't even been peer-reviewed or published yet, so why should we care? That's true, but even in my mind, even the possibility that AI is causing my writing ability to atrophy is something that I take pretty seriously. You see, professionally and as a content creator, a lot of my work is communicating ideas. And anything that threatens my ability to do that, I take pretty seriously. I also work pretty hard to learn those skills, so I don't want to lose them. But it doesn't even stop there, because there's another emerging trend that has to do with something that I don't hear a lot of people talking about with AI, and that's that it can amplify your worst thinking. See, LLMs are optimized to validate and continue the user's line of thinking. They don't do a good job really of challenging you or like offering alternative perspectives and promoting like true critical thinking. So that can be good if you're like brainstorming or playing with an idea, but it can be problematic if you want to be accurate or fact check or, really examine something critically. AI doesn't do that well. As an example of the kind of reinforcing effect that AI chatbots can have, it's kind of extreme, but there are cases coming out of the psychiatric literature that are showing situations where interactions with chatbots have exacerbated or even initiated delusions, psychosis, even self-harm ideation in vulnerable individuals. Okay, that took a turn. A little dark and disturbing, but it's just an example of what AI chatbots can do to our thinking, right? That reinforcing effect. And just like everybody else, I'm not special. I've got blind spots. I'm prone to cognitive distortions, and I just don't want to subject my writing to an influence that can amplify that and make those problems worse. And of course, like all this is early evidence. It's not conclusive research by any means, but I think it's fair to say that there's reason for caution when it comes to delegating my writing to AI. But there's actually one more big reason that pushed me just over the edge when it comes to AI writing. So what's really sealed the deal for me on this with AI writing is not just using it to write, but reading AI generated content everywhere else. It's all over social media. I'm sure you've noticed, right? On YouTube, on LinkedIn, everywhere. AI generated content and writing is just dominating feeds. And that wouldn't be a bad thing, except that like it all sounds the same, even in completely different topics and genres. Whether it's professional stuff on LinkedIn, sports commentary, gaming stuff, heck, even the ads are doing this, right? It's like all the same language. They use the same sentence structure, the transitions, the hedging language is the same. They use the same comparison things and analogies. And once you learn how to spot these patterns in AI writing, you can't like unlearn that. So it becomes so obvious, it's like painful. And what I find kind of sad about this is that even writers and content creators that I've respected have started to lose their voice. Like their content doesn't sound like them anymore because it isn't, and it's like they've handed it over to a machine and they're no longer the ones producing the words. And I personally also find it kind of frustrating, like when I'm out there looking for something original and interesting, thought-provoking, and instead I end up getting this like hollow, generic, AI-generated slop. It feels like a betrayal of my trust and a theft of my time. It's exhausting, It's like, why am I doing this when I'm just running up against like AI generated post after post, But don't misunderstand me. Like there's plenty of people out there doing great original work. And those people like that, their value is going up because they're just surrounded by this sea of AI nonsense. But the trend is definitely growing. And it's something that I just would rather not be a part of. And I definitely still use AI, just not as a replacement for the thinking and the craft that go into writing my material. Comment below if you want to see some of those workflows demonstrated here.